It's the 2nd of September already, and we have a holiday tomorrow, and next week's a holiday. It's a holiday festival kind of thing here. Welcome to Security Weekly News wrap-up show for the week of 30 August 2021. The government, McFlurries, cream, IoT hacks, DDoS, and new iDriver licenses. All this in the show wrap-ups on this edition of the Security Weekly News.
This is Security Weekly, for security professionals, by security professionals.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
It's the show that keeps you up to date on the latest security news twice a week, your trusted source for accurate security information and expert analysis. It's time for Security Weekly News. The complexity of cloud infrastructure means every organization's security challenges are unique. Whether your challenge is threat hunting, policy management, cloud workload protection, or all of the above, Uptycs helps you quickly identify and eliminate observability gaps in your security programs. Uptycs, analytics for the modern attack surface, observability for the modern defender. That's Uptycs, UPTYCS. Check them out at securityweekly.com/Uptycs for a free trial.
All right, I'm Doug White from Roger Williams University, and welcome to the Security Weekly News wrap-up show one day early. Let's get all the show topics from the week, a couple that haven't happened yet. On Application Security Weekly number 164, John and Mike had Caroline Wong, the Chief Strategy Officer at Cobalt, on the show. Caroline was on to talk about risk tolerance and risk transfer. I mean, this is an interesting segment to me because this is a really common topic, because all of these subjects sort of start to lead into the how much do we spend, bang for the buck, is the juice worth the squeeze conversations that you end up having with management, because this is where cybersecurity leads companies, because it's a service, it's a cost sink and it doesn't generate any revenue. So a lot of stuff in that segment, so definitely check that out. On Business Security Weekly number 230, Adrian and Matt did the news first, and then they had stories such as executives in tech say staff attrition is rising. Imagine that. 8 in 10 facility managers consider OT cybersecurity a major concern. Yeah. Consumers concerned about personal data collection, and other stories. So, yeah, I mean, a bunch of stories that basically say stuff we all know and reiterated. In the second segment, Derek Menke, the Chief of Security Insights and Global Threat Alliances at Fortinet's FortiGuard. Get that on a business card. At FortiGuard Labs, joined the show to talk about how the first half of 2021 provided important indicators of what bad actors are actually planning next. Also talked about cyber threat trends and takeaways from some of the big name attacks so far this year. On Enterprise Security Weekly 241, Adrian, Lee, and Paul had Philippe Lafoucriere, the distinguished security engineer at GitLab. And Philippe was on to talk about how GitLab is being pushed to mature their security posture faster than attackers can react to that kind of stuff, and how GitLab does that and how they move very quickly to adapt when things change. In the second segment, John Smith, the principal engineer for security at ExtraHop, joined the show to talk about the R in NDR. And that R is response, if you don't remember all your acronyms for network detection and response, but about the response item. John was talking about how incident responders need a full spectrum from hunting and investigation to remediation, and not just a whole lot of additional alerts. And and I think it was called an alert cannon. And I had not seen that term before, and I really liked that term a lot, because I have certainly felt like I was standing in front of an alert cannon before. And you probably have felt that way as well. My first sysop job, I definitely felt that when they handed me this, I think it was a little higher than waist high of green bar, and they said this was all the notifications and log entries from the last day, and I needed to approve all that and say that I had reviewed it. And I was like, well, I'll get back to you in 6 to 8 weeks, okay? I mean, that stuff is so bad. And if you've ever tried to follow up on 10,000 alerts that you got overnight, You know just what I mean. And you have one of those things where management develop policies that say all alerts will be ticketed and reported on every day. Yeah, right. Sure, it's going to happen. On Security and Compliance Weekly number 85, Jeff, Josh, Priya, and Scott had Christopher Bulin, the founder and CEO at Proven PCI, on the show. This is pretty interesting to me as well, because I having been an auditor out there, and what we were talking about is your merchant service provider guiding you through your audit docs and telling you to just check yes or no, and how that's a problem. And they actually went on and said it might be a crime or falsification of documents, and any of that could result in a breach of your agreement. And I tell you, I've been shocked in the world at some of the things, and I'm not easily shocked, but I was shocked some of the things I've seen, and I saw plenty of cases where people just went through and ticked a bunch of boxes. And one of the first times I ever encountered this, I sat down with the person, I said, okay, let's go see this. And he said, oh, you're going to check. And he just, all he done was going through and check the answer he thought we wanted to hear. And he was like, oh, you actually test these things? But yeah, we're going to test them. And he was like, I need to revise this form right now. And, and it's like, yeah, sure. So, people get pressured into this by vendors, by consultants, by management, doing things. And I saw people doing things I thought was unethical or even illegal just to get through the audit. So check this out if you've ever been in those situations. And they covered that for both segments. On Security Weekly News number 147, Jason Wood was on to talk about tips for DFIR analysts and job seekers in that realm, and I thought that was a pretty cool thing to do. He often talks about some event that occurred, but he was talking about job seekers for that. So if you're interested in that kind of stuff, you're looking for a job in DFIR, check that out. Also, this is a good time to thank Aaron Leyland, the sexiest guy in the United Kingdom. Aaron guest hosted on last Friday because I had to go move my daughter into her new apartment. Great job, Aaron, as always, and thanks. On Paul's Security Weekly number 709, which hasn't actually happened yet, and I don't have a TARDIS, so all I can do is tell you what might happen there, and as we all know, anything can happen on Security Weekly. But on Security Weekly tonight, the first segment is an Nmap vulnerability scanning tech segment. So if you're interested in that sort of things, you should check it out. There is an Acunetics special on iframe security and iframes in a sandbox security that we're going to record after I record the news. And then they're going to do the news later tonight. So I'm sure it'll be a fun evening, so tune in if you can. Always fun. My threat of the week is going to be illusion. It's really about marketing, but illusion. And this is, I always write these based on stuff I've been reading. And the illusion is that there's this golden land over the next horizon. And, we all love to think that when we walk over that next hill, all our dreams will come true. When you sit down with your guitar, you're never, at least I wasn't, I was never sitting there thinking, in just a few short months, I will be bankrupt. You're kind of convincing yourself that in just a few short months, you're going to, the record exec is going to show up and go, oh my God, and you're going to get signed, and then, you can spend the rest of your life as Steven Tyler or something. But I mean, that is kind of that promised land of marketing, and it is a basic part of marketing psychology. I've taken marketing classes in grad school, but the way you sell someone something before marketing was that they came looking for it. So you set up a booth, and it's, hey, does your tribe have a bunch of raw wormy meat that we could get? We've got a lot of fungus infected barley, and we could trade you some of that because we're really, really tired of eating fungus infected barley and experiencing the joys of St. Vitus's dance. So let's trade. But marketing got invented somewhere along the line. I don't actually know where the marketing got invented, but hey, does your church not have enough members? Make up a good story. To sell something, they don't. You want to sell people stuff they don't desperately need, that they haven't come seeking, or that you're in a competitive environment. So there's a lot of products and people have to choose, Pepsi or Coke. How do you convince them that they do this? How do I get you to buy my snake oil instead of Ferdinand's over there. Well, I've got to hook you and get your interest so I can soft sell the rest to you. I've got to get you to the booth. I've got to convince you that my snake oil is better than Ferdinand's, and then maybe, I got a customer for life or who knows. Now, I mean, you probably would be perfectly fine riding along in that Chevrolet in 1945. I mean, it worked. It was a reliable car. It was made out of plate steel, so you could drive it through a brick wall, and it just got a few scratches on it. And that sheet metal dashboard was just like ready to be hosed off for the next person if you had an accident. But, I mean, can't you just see yourself in a Cadillac? I mean, the secret to sales was to allow that customer/victim to be able to envision whatever they want that is softly glowing out there just over the horizon. You could just over the horizon. And people that can give you that feeling, they can sell anything because all they're doing is the setup, and you sell yourself. You start envisioning yourself in that Cadillac. Donald Trump's great at that. I mean, you don't hear me say that very often, but Donald Trump is very good at that very technique of getting people to envision what they want in their mind based on what he's selling, and that works. You get people in that visionary mode, and all of a sudden, they'll buy anything. So, just any moment now, you're going to get what you want, and all your dreams will come true. I don't even need to know your dream if I'm good at it. I let you imagine the rest. So what's my point? So, yeah, you're going, okay, so I have a point sometimes. Well, the point is that we all have to be careful, and we all have to be careful that our managers and people are also careful, and they don't fall victim to this kind of thing in security. C-suite people are always clamoring after some panacea snake oil that will fix it all and make us safe with minimal effort and minimal cost. I mean, okay, that's logical. But the problem is that firewall not selling enough units? Well, let's steal a story from ancient Egypt and make our firewall sound better than it actually is. Or better yet, let's put the words AI enabled on the box, and the suckers will come running to the booth. Yep, because our snake oil, AI enabled. I mean, nobody really wants to see honest product advertising. They think they do, but you won't ever see it if it says something like, this product will vastly enhance your security if you configure it correctly and add enough headcount to use it properly. Yeah, they don't put that on the box. They say, oh, your dreams will come true with this AI enhancement. I mean, that's reality, or that's marketing, not reality. So the marketing people are selling you that golden fuzzy glow, which is really just a 15-watt light bulb with some gel on it or something that makes it look sort of a yellowy, glowy color, and don't get too close because you might realize that it's just a light bulb in a briefcase. But if I imply that if you just buy this box, it will solve all your problems when you plug it in. Skynet version 1.0, solving the world's problems one at a time. Now with increased AI engine that will make the world a better place for this generation and the future. Skynet, your gateway to a better world. I mean, that's how you sell cigarettes, cameras, guitars, cars, or even swampland in Jersey. I mean, it's always like that. There's a better world a-coming, and it's coming due to AI enhancement. Now, don't get me wrong. I love AI. I love ML. I like all that stuff. I love to read about it. I like to play with it. It's awesome. But, and it's a great area for study and development. And AI may well someday make the world a better place, really. And it can even wipe all the humans out, which probably, in an AI model might actually make the world a better place. I mean, it's possible. I mean, the ML stuff could just decide that humans are a threat and wipe them out, and and on and on. But at the end of the day, my problem is when marketing convinces someone that their product will solve all those problems using AI or menthol. I mean, really, menthol. Menthol firewalls. It was originally menthol was originally marketed as a soothing addition to cool irritated lungs. Yeah. 4 out of 5 doctors recommend Lucky Strike. So the threat is that we supplant actual security with gimmicks and props, and they don't really deliver when they need to, or we don't have the staff and or people to review it. I'm sure the Mark 5000 Uber Annihilator bot with AI enhancement will clear out pests and unwanted squatters with utmost efficiency, but what if it actually just kills everything in sight? That Mondo firewall with ML, I mean, will it really detect, preserve, defend against all attacks, even if you have no other security personnel? Just plug it in and it works. Bad packets check in, but they don't check out. Get Mondo now with AI, ML, enhanced algorithm analytics, and all your dreams will come true with massive cost reductions as you downsize those lousy bastards that you don't like down there in the security department. Your CEO bonus will be the biggest in history. That's bigger than Rome, bigger than the gross national product of Mesopotamia, bigger than the Beatles. Just slap one of these babies in and you'll be on the road to Easy Street. All those sweaty, scabrous cyber types, downsize and replace with a Mondo with AI/ML. So be careful to provide good inputs to those processes and don't get taken in by the hype, and don't let your people get taken in. You also have to strategize on how to keep management out of, keep them on the path of right and not let them go over the dark side and start reading marketing brochures. In the meantime, check out my new book called Winning at Sex, Love, and Rock and Roll by using AI/ML to enhance your natural abilities. Available in the gift shop for only $19.99. Every copy includes a free pack of Lucky Strikes for that smooth flavor and healthier lungs. They're toasted. And now, the AI-enhanced news. Whew. I enjoyed that. I feel better somehow. Better in an undefinable way. It's like a glow of marketing, yeah. All right, the news. The United States Senate has been preparing a bill related to cybersecurity incidents, and the initial version required organizations to report cybersecurity incidents to the federal government within 24 hours, or else. Executive orders and subsequent legislation has followed up to two major incidents in the U.S. this year that seem to have triggered a lot of this. The Colonial Pipeline hack, which made gas prices soar and saw people filling their aquariums with gasoline, and, because why not? And the SolarWinds supply chain attack, which saw all of us running for the border because, that was like, it's what? Various people were testifying about the bill yesterday and encouraging this to be changed, to be extended to 72 hours. Ron Boucher, the VP and Global Government Chief Technology Officer at FireEye, said, cyber attacks are often complex and require sophisticated analysis to fully understand the full scope of compromise. Allowing for a reasonable amount of time to properly assess the situation before requiring reporting will limit false positives and redundant or contradictory information and prevent unnecessary data collection. I don't really disagree with that. And 24 hours sounds pretty abrupt, but I don't know what they were really asking for. Other bills are also working their way through the House of Representatives. So if you're interested in this stuff, you're concerned about it, be sure and check that stuff out. I put a link to The Hill, which always tracks all that kind of stuff, and then you can go read the bills yourself and or contact your representatives and senators and say, hey, this is a good idea or bad idea, depending on what you think about it. This is a Labor Day weekend in the United States, and the federal government issued warnings this week that this is a prime time for all sorts of attacks. The FBI and CISA put out a joint advisory on Tuesday warning that ransomware actors often choose holiday weekends as a time to ambush organizations because the offices are often closed. They did not list any specific threat and said they did not have any intel on a specific threat, but it seems to be just a warning. It is a pretty, there's a link to that document in the article I posted. It's a pretty easy to read document. So you may want to just distribute it, or you may want to write your own summary of it for your people, but it's probably not a bad idea. I mean, it's, we've got a holiday coming up. This article, the next article spent a lot of time talking about hacking ATM machines. And they were, and when I was first reading it, I was like, what? They were talking about pressing the cancel button on an ATM transaction. And this doesn't actually work, mind you, but if you give it a minute and you read, it was basically a pretty good analogy where they were trying to explain something completely different. They were talking about hitting the cancel button at just the right instant, which could create a problem, a logical OR problem, a lot like an SQL injection that would create a condition where the money's already being dispensed, but you don't get it removed from your account because of the order of the instructions and the tests on the code. Okay, I mean, I could definitely see that. Banks obviously are very paranoid about such things and test all this, so that doesn't actually work. It was just an analogy, but it is like those traditional SQL injections where, you put an OR in the password field or something like that. But the analogy does work. And it led people to their explanation of a recent crypto attack that siphoned off a lot of Bitcoin and maybe other attacks. Lately, we reported on Poly Networks. They were a victim as a crypto wallet victim, and they lost $610 million and then later paid the person who stole it. The altruist, a self-described altruistic hacker, they paid that person $500,000 to get them to give some of the money back. Liquid, a Bitcoin wallet, or it's not a Bitcoin wallet, it's a crypto wallet, lost about $100 million, reporting that one last week. And, crypto is like cash, really, except your cash is not in a cigar box buried 7 paces from the larch tree and 6 paces west under the statue of Lord Rama by that piece of obsidian. Did I say that out loud? Forget you heard that. No, there's no money buried in my backyard, I promise. Anyway, Cream, that's the name of it. Cream, let me hand you my money. A crypto finance company based in Taiwan apparently lost $13 million worth of AMP and Ethereum. Unlike ATM's phone apps, which are sometimes not well written. I mean, I know you find it hard to imagine a badly written phone app. Yeah. But sometimes they're written by programmers that maybe don't do much in the way of testing said apps. And unlike banks, they're not regulated. So anybody can write these things and then say, give me all your money through the app. We have a logo, right? It must be legit. And we have a cool acronym for a name, CREAM. So it must be legit, but apparently their app's a bit squishy. The app allowed for pushing an account number in between function calls, which have already established a valid state. So this is kind of a racetracky sort of attack, also a recursion type of attack. But basically what happens is it was possible, according to this article, to push a different account number in after the first account number was used. And, okay, then you can have some fun. The article says that Cream stated that it has stopped the exploit by pausing supply and borrow. This is a quote. Pausing supply and borrow on AMP. Sounds even more legit now. Nothing like broken English to make me want to send you a check. Anyway, CREAM stands for Crypto Rules Everything Around Me. So even more legit. What's weird? When I was a kid, banks had this whole persona about them, those big, blocky, stolid edifices that were safe places to put your money, better than cigar boxes in the backyard. Why spend all that extra cash on those buildings and fancy walls and bollards and things? Because it was just psychological, right? And I think those days must have passed. I think we've gotten to the point you could just paint a cardboard box black, write Bitcoin ATM on the side of it, and people would come up and like a hand with like ragged clothing would come out, and people would put their money in it, and then you just say, you now own Bitcoin. Anyway, IoT devices were compromised and turned into remote listing devices for as many as 18 million Xfinity customers. Well, that didn't happen to 18 million people. It's just possible. The vulnerability was in Comcast XR11 voice remotes, and those are issued to subscribers all over the place that get cable boxes from this company. The XR11 is really, really common, and it can be rebranded as well. So a lot of them have these voice remotes now, and people use them. So instead of having to push buttons on it, you just say like next channel, and it updates. More than 18 million devices are found in the United States. Guardicore, who was the researcher working on this, demonstrated that a man-in-the-middle attack that they ended up calling "Where's the remote?" Oh yeah, they found they could listen in on the remote, so they could turn it into a receiver. They did have to be within 65 feet of the device, so that's not very far. I mean, an apartment building maybe, but the bug was reported back in October of last year, and Comcast patched it. But this article has an AT&T report that provided additional details of how this worked. It's called an RF comms encryption bug, which means that the attacker who's within range of the device can cause it to respond to an encrypted request from the cable box with plain text. And the remote then is willing to, I'm sorry, the other way around. The remote gets a plain text response and then apparently is willing to receive additional data. So they tricked the remote into thinking the reply was from a cable box, which has the ability to update the remote's firmware. The attack then flashes the remote firmware, and that allowed them to get into the remote. Ultimately, they were able to record up to 10 minutes of conversation from the remote, and AT&T said that most likely what happened was an SQL injection over Wi-Fi crashed the cable box. That puts the remote into a vulnerable state where they could manipulate the 24-hour search value. So the remote, every 24 hours, the remote says, hey, do you have anything for me? And they change that to 1 minute so they could then feed it a steady diet of shellcode. So sounds kind of Mission Impossible-y. Like there's a lot of ducks you can crawl around in and so forth to get within 65 feet of the president's remote control. But, hey, it's interesting. Distributed denial of service attacks grew 4 times in the first half of 2021. Imperva did the data collection on this, and they examined 5,600 network attacks, roughly, that they had reported on. They said the intensity of the attacks had grown dramatically since last year. Imperva also found that the average duration of the attack, though, had declined, and that more than half of the attacks they documented were 8 minutes or less. So a massive flood for a while, a very short while, and then it repeats. They said one attack topped 1 terabit per second, so that's a lot. Imperva said that it was so cheap to create these floods that the cost of a cup of coffee could be used to disrupt a corporate cloud service, and $100 could take the whole network down for hours, if not days. The article goes on to talk about how the barrier to entry in this attack space is very low, and that these may even soon be like service-type deals where you purchase a denial of service attack against someone from a provider on the dark web. The most common attacks are still UDPs, with 43% of the attacks being UDP floods, and followed by SYN floods at 21%. The article goes on to talk about how these are very possibly automated botnets, and that automated bots make up about 67% of the daily traffic to web servers already for legitimate reasons like data scraping, but the bad bots, especially automated bad bots, can be, bad. Remember the Doomsday Machine on Star Trek? Well, Pepperidge Farm remembers. Anyway, automated bad bots could be conducting these attacks. Who knows? They could be AI-enhanced or ML-enhanced bad bots. AIEABB bots coming for you. There's another acronym. I'm moving to Wyoming. I'm going off the grid. Forget it. Atlassian advised on the 25th of August that their Confluence product is affected by critical vulnerability, which would allow arbitrary code to run on the Confluence server and the data center instances. Bad Packets said on the 29th of August that exploiting the flaw was easier than expected, and on the 1st of September, there were internet scans searching for vulnerable systems. Bad Packets went on to say they had observed attacks exploiting this flaw to deliver crypto miners. CISA has issued alerts, as well as the FBI, and there's a technical analysis link in the article if you want to read up on all the grim details of this. 8 states are starting to issue driver's licenses and ID cards, which can reside in Apple iPhone wallets. Apple made that announcement and said that Arizona and Georgia will be the first to add this, followed by Connecticut, Iowa, Kentucky, Maryland, Oklahoma, and Utah. This was developed in conjunction with the TSA, so these Apple iDriver licenses would be acceptable at the airport and other ID checkpoints. The mobile wallets will be available in iOS 15, which is due out soon. Apple said they would take full advantage of the privacy and security in iPhone and watches built into those devices already to protect your goodies. Iceland tried this previously, and Syndis research outlined all the flaws from the January 2020 rollout. So privacy groups as well as civil rights groups are concerned that a fully digital identity system can create a monitoring system, which is pretty much true. EFF said that if you weren't careful every time you walk through a door, buy something, that the event could be recorded and aggregated by the government. Bad news, guys, it already is pretty much. I mean, if you're carrying an iPhone, you pretty much already, being identified. But I guess this ties the government into it, so TSA could, I guess, get this data. They did also talk about how this was going to marginalize people who can't afford to buy an iPhone, which, is already a problem. So could we just automate the whole speed trap ticket payment thing? So when you drive on the highway, your ID scan, you get an automated charge acceptance, you automate the payment. It's like Easy Pass for speeding. They could sell that in advance. And finally, I'll be honest, I haven't been in a McDonald's since I was a kid. No offense, McDonald's, I just haven't been there. But apparently they have a machine called a McFlurry that makes some sort of McMilkshake. Anyway, apparently it's also a thing that these machines are often McBroken, which is McFrustrating to all the McPeople who wanted to Okay, I'm going to stop doing that now. It frustrates all the people who want to buy McFlurries. Okay, I'm not saying Mc anything anymore. The Wall Street Journal reported that the FTC, that's the Federal Trade Commission, or the I swore I wasn't going to do that to me. But the Federal Trade Commission sent a McLetter to McDonald's wanting to understand why the machine was always McBroken. So the machines are made by somebody called Taylor. I swear I thought it was going to be Lucas Electronics, but it wasn't, or Citron. But anyway, another company called Catch had to be retained to develop a diagnostic tool to help to keep the machines McRunning. So this turned into some kind of fight between Taylor and Catch, who claimed that Taylor was infringing on the rights of McDonald's and intellectual property theft. So because they wouldn't let them repair their own machines, they claimed they were basically making the machines so complicated and flawed that they have to keep paying to get them fixed. This was explained that Taylor made the device difficult to repair, had intentionally written lousy code, which they called janky, to keep those repair dollars rolling in. Can't imagine. Well, anyway, so now here comes the FTC. I'm sure the whole thing will cost a lot of McBucks. And that's the news wrap-up for the week of 30 August 2021 in the renewed Time of Plague. We will not be here next week as it's an AI-enhanced McHoliday, so happy McAutumn. See you next time. Bye.